Hey everybody, this is John Boyum of the Let's Talk Beef podcast. Today I am in Lewistown, Montana. Been here for the past day or two, hanging out with the family, waiting to go to the next ranch here next week, which is amazingly the start of week number 6 that we've been on the road traveling through North Dakota, Montana, and soon to be Wyoming. It's been a great trip. I gotta say the bus is running great, running smooth. Can't complain about anything there. The wife and the kids are doing great. They're happy, healthy. So it's been a great trip. Meeting a lot of cool people, seeing a lot of neat things. So it's been a great family experience for us. But this week the podcast we go back south down to South Carolina this time with Kevin Yon of Yon Family Farms. Kevin is a first generation farmer down there, rancher. They raise Angus cattle. We were able to hook up with Kevin for a few hours, and I gotta say, I wish I could have spent a day or two there. It was pretty cool to see it. Besides the weather, man, it was hot, but it was great to see his operation. Wish I could have spent more time there, and but I think you're gonna really enjoy the podcast. It was a lot of fun to sit down and record, and you'll see in this podcast there's a few skips in there that I had to edit out because this agricultural podcasting thing I'm learning is quite difficult when you're on farm. It's hard to not get interrupted. It's not hard to have background sound. So I'm learning to just kind of let it go and try to clean it up as best I can. But I think it's just part of it. Anybody in the egg community knows that it's just part of life. You get interrupted in the most inopportune times, and you just got to roll with it. So that's what I'm learning for sure. So, but Kevin was a great interview, great person. I hope you really enjoyed the podcast. It was a lot of fun, and can't wait to see what comes out of Yon Family Farms here in the future. But first, before we get to the podcast, I gotta say thanks to my sponsor again, Casper Enterprises, Dave Casper of Rushford, Minnesota. If you got any organic or all natural crops that need some help, or just need somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off to, and give Dave a call. He's a great guy. He knows his plant biology. He knows what's going on with his organic plants, all natural plants. He's quite the agronomist type there. So give Dave a call, 507-458-7659. Tell Dave that you heard it from the Let's Talk Beef podcast, and we'll go from there. But this is Kevin Yon of Yon Family Farms, and I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you soon. Thanks, guys. And we are in Ridge Spring, South Carolina. I keep wanting to say Georgia, but it's South Carolina. I'm sure I'll get punched in the face if that happens. I'm sitting here with Kevin Yon of Yon Family Farms, and I'll just go ahead and let Kevin introduce himself. Kevin? Nope. Waiting for that truck.
We always have lots of youth here.
Yeah, that's probably good though. Good and bad.
It's good, but it's
a lot of teachable moments.
yes, there is. Good kids.
Good. Okay, so I'm here at Yon Family Farms in Ridge Springs, South Carolina with the Kevin Yon. So Kevin, let's just hear a little bit about yourself.
John, it's good to have you and your wife here with us this afternoon here in Ridge Springs, South Carolina. We're in the west central part of South Carolina, on the Ridge section located between Augusta, Georgia and Columbia, South Carolina. And it's a warm June, hot, humid day in the southeast.
It is. I'm not used to this yet.
But we welcome you here. We've had some nice rains. Our grass is greened up and cattle are out grazing, and it's looking good here today. Yon Family Farms is a first-generation family operation. It's my wife Lydia and I and our 3 grown children, Sally and now her husband Reed, and Drake and his wife Nicole, and Corbin. And we also have other extended family members that are part of Yon Family Farms, but we're primarily a seed stock Angus operation.
Okay. So when did you start here?
Lydia and I managed a farm for 7.5 years, and then we had the opportunity to start a lifelong dream, or fulfilling a dream of having our own place in 1996. So we've been here in Ridge Spring for just celebrated our 22nd year.
Wow. So growing up, did you have beef cattle then there too, or nothing, or just kind of had a this came out of? Where did this whole cattle thing start?
I've had a dream of having a cattle farm all my life. My father was a son of a sharecropper.
Mm-hmm.
His dad farmed all his life and never owned an acre of land. And later on, my grandparents had a very small farm and on the other side, and I was able to spend a lot of time with them. And it's a lifelong dream. I've never wanted to do anything else but farm. And later on, developed a passion for beef cattle and more particularly Angus cattle.
Okay. So no cattle at all growing up?
Bought my first purebred Angus heifer at age 12.
12?
Yep.
And that's where it started?
I bought a steer and a heifer. Borrowed the money from my parents. They gave me an interest-free loan.
Oh, that was nice of them.
I had a plan. I was going to feed out the steer and sell it as freezer beef. Had half of it already sold, a quarter being to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And was going to take the heifer and start my Angus herd with her. Was working for a neighbor, and little did he or I know, we took these cows right off the mama, and they weren't really very well weaned, and just a week later they were out in the highway and my heifer was killed by a car.
Wow.
So I was able
Welcome to the cattle business.
Absolutely. So the guy I'd bought them from, really a good man, Angus breeder in our area, he kind of got wind of it and felt really bad. So he said, why don't just bring the heifer on back to, the steer, back to my place, and we'll be sure he gets fed up good and makes it to slaughter. And he did, and we did, and he let me help with some of the chores. And when it was all said and done with, I was able to pay my debt and break even, and I was right back to where I started from. But it was a great learning experience.
That is. So it just the Angus part just was coincidence that the neighbor had Angus.
No, actually I was a avid reader and took all the farm magazines, and back in those days you would check a card and get information from all the beef breed associations, and I did that, and I did a self-study at the ripe old age of 12 and had all the information and propaganda from all the different breed associations, and I guess I just chose Angus.
Yep.
And at that time, that was 1978. They were not very popular at that time, but had intentions and had desires to have shown that heifer or to show other heifers. That never quite materialized, but later in life, our children got to show cattle, so got to live that dream through them, and the Angus Association afforded them a lot of opportunities through their junior programs and through scholarships.
Gotcha. So at age 12, you break even in the cattle business, and is there a big gap then, or did you keep doing some cattle things throughout high
Continued
school?
to work for neighbors on farms and cattle farms. Did bought a herd of commercial Angus cattle when I was in the 11th grade of high school. Had a great uncle that was sick, and before he passed, I bought his herd of cattle of about 25 cows and rented his pastures, and he and his wife financed those for me. So I was able to run those cows, commercial cows, through high school, and went to school at Clemson University, and that was still within 30 miles of my rented pasture, so I was able to keep my cows through my university days, and that's what Lydia and I our first dates was going to check on the cows.
Go check cows.
Yep.
Because you're not from here. You grew up north of here?
I grew up in north of here in the upstate of South Carolina, Anderson County, which is this right below Clemson.
Okay. Where's Clemson? I guess I don't even know where Clemson's at.
Clemson is in the upper part of the state in the western foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
Okay. Yep. So you studied animal science at Clemson?
I did. Went there in 84, 85, right during the farm crisis. I was told that it's okay to like agriculture, but never really plan on being able to make your living on the farm. Those were tough times then. So I thought it would be really good to go and get an ag engineering degree, and maybe that would someday afford me to run cows and to farm.
Yep.
But after being at Clemson a year or two, I found myself wanting to hang out with all the block and bridle kids and the livestock judging team, and I was wanting to take those classes more than I was wanting to take the physics and the calculuses. And had an advisor one day, and he saw my passion, and he had a long, hard talk with me and said, you know, you can choose to do what makes you happy, or you can choose to do something that might not be as fulfilling. So I switched to animal science and realized that it would be maybe a tougher way to make a living financially, being in the, and had desires to be in the production sector. But it's a change that I've never regretted and have been perfectly happy ever since with that choice.
So you go to Clemson, finish up, switch degrees, go to animal science, then get done with Clemson, and that's when you started working for that other breeder?
Yes, we
right after Clemson?
My wife and I were engaged to be married, and we got a dream job of going and managing a purebred Angus operation.
Here in South Carolina?
Yes, it was in South Carolina. It was near Columbia, South Carolina, which was about 100 miles south of Clemson, as well as being about 100 miles south of where we were raised.
Yep. So you do that for 7.5 years, and then they pull the rug out from underneath you a little bit.
Well, we thought that at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best things that ever happened. You know, a lot of seed stock operations are not long-lived.
Yep.
It was a family that had many business interests. They gave us wonderful opportunities. They allowed two 22-year-olds to run it just as if it were theirs, and we thought of it as ours. And we made lots of mistakes, and they allowed us to do that. They allowed us to have 3 children there on the farm and allowed us to bring them to work with us, and the playpen was there by the cattle chute. And it was looking back, it was a wonderful opportunity. We thought that we would be happy to manage that herd of cows there for many years to come. And we always had the dream and desire of having our own place, but we didn't realize that we would start down that path at roughly at 30 years of age.
So you said that they allowed you to make lots of mistakes. So what mistakes have you made? Like what mistakes have you learned the most from throughout your career? Like what sticks out? Like things that you did wrong that you made? You
know, I'm not sure if there's any big ones that really stick out. When you're 19, 20 years old, 21 years old, and you just finished university, you think you've got most of the answers. You think you're pretty smart, but every day since then I've learned just probably how little we do know, and how much there's yet to learn. And that's one of the funnest things about the beef cattle business, about agriculture, is it's always changing. Even something that we thought we knew 20 years ago, today it might be obsolete, or it's just changed so much. So one big mistake I can't tell you. I make mistakes every day today. And having a young family come back to the farm, I've realized that they're going to make mistakes, but they're not going to make any more than I make. So I try to give them room to make decisions, and usually they're going to be the right decisions, but sometimes we all, looking back, wish we'd chose something different.
So you never let the mistakes scare you away from doing anything?
Not a bit.
You just hit them head on?
The only person that doesn't make mistakes is somebody that's not doing very much. I always tell these young folks that the more you do, the more chances there are to make a mistake. So the folks that make a lot of mistakes, usually they're doing a lot of different things. They're trying and they're pushing their limits.
So hang on, we got a 4-wheeler driving by here quick. So you're working at a registered Angus place for 7.5 years. You end up having to leave that place, and then so where do you go from there?
Well, it was in our world, we thought it was a sad day, the day that we found out that those cows would be dispersed and we would need to find a new place, and 3 young children under the age of 5, and we didn't know if we should continue in the seed stock business or go get a job with the government or extension or selling feed or selling animal health. So we had some of those interviews and really did some soul searching. We knew our passion was raising cattle. And during that time of soul searching, our family decided one Sunday afternoon to take a little ride, and it was an area, part of our state that happened to be where we live now, Ridge Spring. And I told Lydia and the family, we loaded up in the old Jeep Grand Wagoneer after church and said, let's go on a family ride, and we came to Ridge Spring. And we rode around, and I had been here delivering bulls, and Lydia had never been here, and she just fell in love with the community, and it was agriculture, and it was pretty, and she was saying, let's let him go. Interrupting now? Kind of, but we're in a place where we were gullible to that.
That's just gonna happen.
You're better than Boozer coming out here getting crackers and asking where she parked the truck. So
Lydia falls in love with the place.
Falls in love with the area. The community, because it's agricultural and very low key. Looks like you kind of go back in time 25 years. And we were just looking around. We were a little bit down and out. It was December, and we weren't sure what we were doing, and it was a gloomy day. And here in our little town of Ridge Spring, they had these great big Christmas lights draped across the main street, and it looked like something you'd see back in time. And Drake, who was 3 years old at the time, was doing the I got to go to the bathroom thing, and I knew what that meant. That meant I stop at the store and we'll get a drink and a candy bar.
Yep.
And I was refusing to do that. And finally, before we made the long trip back to Congaree Farms, Lydia said, "Nah, you better really stop. This long trip back, he probably needs to use the restroom." And one convenience store here in our town, still here today, was one there then, one now, 22 years ago. And so while they're in the store getting drinks and candy bars, I'm sitting out in the parking lot, and lo and behold, one of our bull customers pulls up. And he says, "Kevin, what in the world are you doing in Ridge Spring today?" And I didn't really want to tell him what we were up against and what we were doing here. Mm-hmm. And so we talked on there a while, and he said, "It's so odd that I see you here today. My brother and I have been talking about y'all this week." And I said, "Oh, really? Tell me what you've been talking about us about." He said, "No, really nothing. It's not important." And I said, "No, I want to know. You've piqued my curiosity." And he said, "I know y'all are happy at Congaree Farms, and I know things are going good for you there, and we would never want to disrupt what you've got going on there. But we were just thinking if there ever was a time you were hunting somewhere else to go, is that we've got a little place we would sell you, a little tract of land, and we would could rent you some adjoining acreage." And my mouth fell open, and I said, "Rod, matter of fact, we are looking for somewhere to go." And so I was back in Ridge Spring the very next morning and met with Rod and his brother Maynard, and we struck a deal up where they sold us this very 100 acres that we're on today. Had a little tenant house. It also had a couple other 100 acres that they agreed to lease us. We didn't have any equipment. We had one old pickup truck, and so we came here and we traded our labor for the use of their equipment. And we also managed their commercial cow herd, which we also used as recipients. And we were able to bring half of the Congaree Farms herd that we had worked with for 7.5 years with us. We were able to purchase 100 cows of the 200. So we brought those 100 cows here and took the best few and made them donors and flushed them and put those embryos into those commercial cows that we were working with, and we've really just have grown our herd from that nucleus herd of 100 over the last 22 years.
So did Drake get like an extra candy bar for stopping at the convenience store that day?
He got plenty. And, we tell that story, and anytime you're doing something, a new venture, no matter what it is, there's sometimes lots of doubt. Did we make the right decision? Did we do the right thing? But to us, that was more than just happenstance.
Yep.
That was something way bigger than us. And we've had some tough days. And we've had some times where we weren't sure if we were going to be able to pay the bills or not, but we've never doubted, was this not meant to be where we were to raise our family and what we were to do. Mm-hmm. So it was nice that it was that easy
Yeah.
Not that it was easy, but it
No.
was nice that it fell into place
Yeah.
that divinely
Yeah.
that we could never second guess that.
So those 100 cows that you bought, did you buy that before? I mean, were they just planning on to do like a dispersal sale, or how did you end up, like, did you just go to them and say, I want to try to buy half of them, or how did that?
That was another neat story. The owners of the farm asked us to have the cattle dispersed by June 1 of 1996, and we had a sale date chosen, and it just killed us thinking about those cows would be dispersed and go off, and they would have done a wonderful job to others. But the owner of the farm said, if you can find a buyer privately, I'll certainly entertain that. So we got busy finding someone else that wanted part of that cow herd, and we found another gentleman that was interested in 100 cows, and that left us 100. And he didn't know a lot about the cattle business, but he knew a lot about business, because he told us very plainly. He said, you and Lydia know those cows like you know the back of your hands, and you should know them. You've been working with them, and that's your life. He said, I really don't know them, but tell you what I want you to do. I want you to divide those cattle up, that herd of cattle on paper, in two herds, herd A and herd B, and then I get to choose. So that's what we did. Mm-hmm. We divided those 200 cows up, and 100 cows in herd A, 100 cows in herd B. We gave him the information, and he chose herd A. So I don't know of a fairer way that we could have ever done it.
Is that what you want? Did you want B?
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter?
It didn't matter. We had to have them equal.
Yep.
Same way as our children. If they were two pieces of pie left or pie there, we'd tell our children, hey, Sally, you cut the pie, and Drake, you get to choose what piece you want. You don't make it as even as you know how.
Yeah. So you're dispersed. So it was just a two-way split. Half the cows went one way, half the cows went the other.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes.
As perfect as it could be for a dispersal for you.
It was great, and then as time had it, later on, that gentleman dispersed his Angus herd 4 or 5 years later, and we got to go in at his dispersal sale and get back those cow or two that we thought we really missed.
Did you really?
Yep.
You got a couple of them back?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
So now you got 100 cows, and you're here in Rock Spring, and you're starting to flush a few cows, putting embryos in the Maynard, and what was the other guy's name? Rod's cows, and it just starts. So where do you go from there? How long till were you selling stuff privately, or what were you doing, trying to get to a sale?
That first year, we had started a private treaty silent auction type bull sale at Congaree Farms, so we didn't miss a lick. We had one February of '97, our first one here. Our barn was half complete. It had metal on half the roof and wasn't anything on the other half, and we were standing in the mud, but we sold 17 bulls that first year through a silent auction, and haven't missed a year since, and have been able to grow the herd through embryo transfer. And as time went on here, after we moved to Ridge Spring, when we first came here, as you move anywhere new, people kind of stand back and look at you, and about half of them thought we were crazy anyway. This is pretty good farm ground. It's peach country, it's vegetable country, it's row crop country. And here came this family with 3 children and 100 cows out of nowhere.
Yep.
But with time, we noticed that the other cattle guys in the area, as they became older, many of whom did not have family members that wanted to continue their farm, so kind of one by one they would come to us with a very similar proposition, and it would be something like, I would like you to rent my farm. I'd like to sell you my commercial cows. If you don't mind, I'd like to finance them. I don't want to pay Uncle Sam any more than I have to. I want to help you on the pretty days that it's nice and I want to do something outside, but on those cold, wet days or those days too hot, I'll probably be doing something else. And by the way, I've watched how you keep your place up. I want you to keep mine up the same way as you do your very own. So that's how we've grown, just one after another, from a guy with 40 acres and 20 cows to a guy with 300 cows and 500 acres, and all within a 5-mile radius of our farm.
Wow.
And there's probably been a half a dozen of those over the years that we've just, it's sad to see the older generation sell their cows, but they were real concerned about the area. They didn't want their places developed. They still wanted to live here. They still wanted it to be farmed. They wanted it to be taken care of just as they had taken care of them. Mm-hmm. So it was really a win-win. It allowed them to stay on their farms and to enjoy the things they wanted to enjoy and have somebody else paying the bills. So we see it as a win-win, and we're very appreciative of the opportunity, because they did take a chance on us. Lots of times they were 100% financing the cows, and
but now they're probably more like family than ever.
Absolutely, and many of them have passed. But we found that, people that have been in a community, especially these rural areas across America, they love their community and they love their towns. And if they see someone that's have common goals to make the town better, or make the church stronger, or help with Little League, or be a volunteer fireman, that means a lot to these families that have been invested in the area.
Yeah.
So that has been it's been a blessing for us to get to do those things.
Mm-hmm. So you guys jump all in here and start with your first private treaty sale. And so how long till you start doing an actual sale?
It was probably, we did the private treaty deal for 3 or 4 years, and our numbers kept growing, and maybe we had a few too many numbers head to sell what we thought in a private treaty deal, and we thought it was time to have a live auction. So I don't know, somewhere along about the year 2000 maybe, we started with a live auction, just mainly the one sale per year in February of just bulls. And then as time went on, we added a fall sale, selling coming 2-year-old bulls. And then wasn't long we got to a point where we could offer females in both the fall October sale as well as the spring February sale.
So were you getting questions for females before you started selling females? People trying to come in and buy some?
Yeah, we really were. We were always getting requests to purchase, for folks to come here and buy females. They saw what their sons did, and they saw the way we ran our cows. We try to run our cows just like our very best commercial guys would do. We don't pamper them. We're in the grass business. We're here in South Carolina, where we're able to grow a lot of different species and able to sure try to have something grazable year-round. And we have to have cattle that can utilize those sometimes fairly low-quality forages and do their job off grass.
So when you moved down here, was the forage lower quality here, and you had to change forage since then?
Well, most of the farm that we started with was abandoned peach orchard and row crop land, crop grounds. So we've had to establish permanent grasses, both cool season and mainly warm season. We use a lot of cool season annuals, warm season annuals in rotation. And then the farms that we've leased over the time had grass, and most of those gentlemen and ladies were good grass farmers, but hopefully we've in some small way made it better.
So you said it was abandoned peach orchard, so like the trees were still standing, or
the trees had just been pushed up.
Just been pushed up.
Yeah, there were.
That means uprooted, taken out?
Uprooted, piled up, and were actually burning the day that we came and looked at the farm.
Really?
Yeah.
So I don't know nothing about peaches. So how often do you change a peach orchard?
A peach tree is good for about 15 years.
15 years.
Yep. So it had been in our main farm here had been in peaches probably about 15 years.
Yeah, we don't have much fruit trees besides apples. So where does, along the way, what's the biggest thing that's changed over time here? I mean, you were doing embryo work right away. So I mean, that's always been part of it. So what technology or what practices have changed the most throughout your time here? What have you learned?
Right. We just from the very start, we were doing artificial insemination and embryo work, trying to use the very best genetics in the breed to hopefully make our cattle better. We've always evaluated our cattle, taking birth weights, weaning weights, yearling ultrasound data. We were doing that from the very beginning and still do it today. Some of the newer technologies that have come along, a big one would be genomic testing. Today we'll take a DNA sample from every calf on the farm and send it to one of the labs, and they'll evaluate from some 16 or more different economically relative traits.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that has we've seen transform our industry. Using some in vitro fertilization on some donors. Or
Were you hit hard by the genetic defect craze there for a
yeah,
while?
any of us that had Angus cattle, with science, these defects were nothing new. They'd been in the cattle forever, but with science they discovered it. So sometimes with science we get a lot of what we want, and maybe some of what we find out some things that we didn't want to know.
Yep.
But we managed through those genetic conditions. Today with the science allows you to manage through them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they are. You don't have to breed them and hope and breed to find out. Today we can take a sample and we can manage around it. We
Yeah.
can work around those conditions.
Did you sell a lot of cows because of that? Like a
We
lot
did
of people
not.
did?
We did not sell those cows.
You didn't get scared like a lot of other people?
We didn't. These cows were the way we make our living. It was a huge obstacle. Yes, we had cattle that were worth a lot more the day that before the genetic condition was discovered, but
Yep.
We just had to get resourceful and continue to breed some of those cattle and test our way around it, test progeny, and most of them we turned into recipients and let them still raise good calves out of the cattle that needed to be purebreds.
Okay. So now just talking about the cows in general, have you made the perfect cow yet?
No, we haven't made
No.
the perfect one.
Close?
I don't know. We sure, think we've got, and we never look at it as one individual perfect cow. We look at it as a herd of cows that will work in our environment, a herd of cows that will, fertility is so important, that will breed and calve as 2-year-olds, that will have a calf unassisted. We'll get that calf up, nurse that calf, and raise that calf. And for us, it's done without creep feed. It's done on hopefully some high quality forages along the way and some stored forages with some supplementation. Hopefully wean a calf that's that heifer calf that's going to turn around and do it all again and make us a great cow, or make somebody else a great cow, or a steer calf that's going to grow well and stay healthy and go to the rail and hang a very desirable carcass that will end up in a very pleasurable eating experience for someone, or a bull calf that's going to be a herd bull that's going to help improve somebody's herd. So, no, we haven't made the perfect one, but it's sure fun trying to get there, and it's sure fun seeing genetic progress, seeing weights get heavier, but weights isn't everything. It's what we sell, and it's very important to our customers, but things like just seeing cattle being adaptable to our environment and having longevity and having feet that will stay put together and udders that will stay sound and structure that they can get out and travel this pastures to hunt for forage, and dispositions that are friendly, and cattle that will slick off and can withstand our heat and humidity. And even in the wintertime we can get cold and humid. A 40-degree day with the wind blowing and spitting rain can be just as harsh as a deep snow in a drier climate. So cattle that are very versatile, that can handle our environment, do it with an optimum level of input. I wouldn't say minimum inputs. It's optimum inputs to get the kind of outputs that will make us profitable. We got to make a living with our cows, but maybe more importantly, make our customers profitable.
So when we were talking earlier, you said that you as a family make decisions on what bulls you're going to use, and then you and I think you said Drake and your son-in-law individually mate the cattle. So when you're individually mating, is it whatever comes out comes out? Like, are you hoping for a heifer or a bull one way or another, or is it just you're just hoping for a calf?
No, we use very limited set semen. We need bulls. That's our living, is selling bulls, but we need good females to go back in the herd that will keep making those good bulls. So, I guess our mindset is usually more toward those breeding decisions is what's going to be best for that commercial producer. but also we've got to remember the maternal end, and he's keeping daughters out of those bulls. So we're looking at it from both sides. And the mating decisions, that's one of the funnest things we get to do, is picking out artificial insemination bulls. And we're in a business where we can use the very best genetics in the world.
Yeah.
And it's attainable to each and every one of us. Most all of us can muster up enough money to buy a cane of semen on most any bull out there. So that's, when you've got those kind of tools that help you know who the great bulls are. 20, 30, 50 years ago, we didn't have any of those tools. We just had to look at them or go to the show and see which one got slapped grand champion. And today we can, we've got EPDs and dollar indexes and actual measurements and genomic data, and hopefully we get to see the cattle too, and that we like their conformation. There's just so many tools that we have that should help us make cattle better.
So do most of your nights you spent with an AI book in front of your face, or
that's
on the computer looking at bulls and calves and
That's
cows?
that's the enjoyable part of what we do.
Yeah.
Thinking of how you're gonna mate them and make that next great one.
Do you mate them, like if you have a certain cow, do you mate her in your mind 100 different ways before you pick
Oh,
one
we'll
right?
mate her in our mind 20 different ways, and we'll see what that looks like on paper as far as how those EPDs match up with potential sires. And we'll also mate her on from a phenotype standpoint.
Yep.
If she needs help in an area of conformation, we still like to look at cattle. We still want them to have a nice look to them.
Yep.
We want them to have the genotype and to have good predictions that they're going to do well, but we still like for them to have a nice phenotype.
So how far spread is your customer base?
Our customer base is mainly here in the southeastern states. It would stretch, it's expanded over time. It started out within a 150-mile radius, but as we've grown and our herd size has grown, that customer base has gone from the swamps of South Florida to the frozen hills of New York State, and over to the Mississippi, and sometimes even across the Mississippi. So it's a big area. Most of it's in the southeastern with that's relying on forages. A lot of cattle that rely on Kentucky 31 endophyte infested fescue, and that is what we and other producers have to work with. And there's some cattle that can handle it better than others.
Yep.
And it's hard on most any of them, but there are some cattle that do better than others. So we hopefully, in our 30 years of breeding cattle, have found cattle that will, I don't know if thrive is the right word, but tolerate or hopefully do well in our environment. And hopefully we'll go to other environments and do well. We've sent cattle to the Rockies of Colorado, that in high altitude areas, and to the plains of Montana, to down into Texas. So hopefully they not only do well just in the southeast, but they do well as they move both west and north.
Because what are your customers? So they're selling feeder calves and keeping potentially females back mostly?
Yep, most of our customer base would be selling feeder calves, keeping back replacement heifers, and many of our customers have found that the replacement market can be a profit center. They've become a kind of a hub selling replacement heifers to other producers. We do also have some customers that retain ownership. So the carcass traits and the performance traits and the feed efficiency traits become very important to them.
Yep.
But whether our customer actually retains through the feed yard and through the packing sector or not, someone's going to feed those cattle and someone's going to slaughter those cattle. And they need to be the right kind. They need to come back to our customers and want to buy his calves again.
Because you guys retain some yourself, right?
We do, and we have. We've retained cattle for for the last 22 years, and we feel like it's very important for us to put cattle in a commercial feeding environment to see how the health stayed, to see how they performed, see how they converted, and then hang them on a rail and see what they were from a carcass merit standpoint.
How many are you retaining a year, roughly?
We, over the years, it'd be at least 1 to 2 loads.
Okay.
And in recent years, we've had some opportunities to feed our cattle at home right here in South Carolina, and we've taken those to slaughter weights and have worked with a very local packer on a grid right here close to home and have developed a little local trade for our beef, and we've also been tremendous supporters of our Certified Angus Beef program. You know, a premier beef program, one of the biggest success stories in agriculture is Certified Angus Beef, and it has helped us, quite frankly, increase the demand for Angus bulls.
Mm-hmm.
And it has helped our customers increase the demand for Angus feeder calves, and so it's been a real success story and something that we've felt the trickle down on.
You must be pretty proud of it. If you come to Yon Family Farms, there's a huge sign of it on your barn.
Yep, it's we feel like it's our brand. We own that brand. That brand is owned by members of the American Angus Association and extended members that use Angus genetics. We feel very proud in that brand, and it needs to have integrity, and when that customer spends a little bit extra for Certified Angus Beef, it needs to be good, and it needs to be good every single time.
Mm-hmm. So now, transitioning a little bit, where does the beef industry go from here? I mean, there's lots of what's the word? Lots of people that don't understand the beef industry, trying to bring in their ideas and inputs and outputs, or trying to influence things. What is your thoughts on that? People trying to come in and tell you how to do things, or
yeah, I think we've noticed the beef industry taking a different look at that. At one time we would be very defensive. By George, this is the way we do it, and this is the right way. We've got the science to back us up, and we're doing things right. And if you don't agree with us, you can go jump in the lake, and you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those might have been a little crazy, but as agriculturalists, we're producing food.
Yep.
And we're producing dinner that's going to go on some family's plate at night. And if we need to meet them where they are and to try to explain what we do and how we do it and be very transparent and very authentic in what we do, I think it's our duty. I think we need to, it's their food. It's what they're feeding their family, and what can be more important to a young mother than what she's putting on the table for her children. So I think that there comes a responsibility of us as food producers, that we need to be willing to show and explain and tell how we produce food, and that we feed our families, and that we love and care about our families, and we would never want to feed our families anything that, or your family anything that we weren't willing to feed our family.
Mm-hmm.
And that we care about people, and we care about the land, and we're human.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to tell that story, and I think we've got to be willing to share that story, and we've got to be willing to be uncomfortable at times. Things like traceability, animal ID, sustainability. We've got to meet the consumer where they are.
Yep.
And we've got to not just think that we always have all the answers and have science on our side, in which we do. We're a very science-based industry,
Mm-hmm.
and we can defend that, but sometimes it goes beyond just defending it with some science-based article.
Yeah. Have you changed practices at all here? Have you made changes here personally for anything you see coming in the future?
We really haven't. We
No.
try to use all the technology that is proven and that is safe and wholesome that there is. We need to use technology. If we're going to, as an industry and as a farm, if we're going to feed a growing world and if we're going to be profitable, we've got to use technology. And if others can get away without using it, and good for them. We live in a country where if you want to grow organic or eat organic, guess what? Have at it, and I wish you the very most success. If the next guy wants to use technology in the right way, well, I hope he'll have success as well. So this is a big industry. This is a free country, and there's lots of different avenues. But I get a little perturbed when we beat each other up. We say one's wrong and one's right. Well, that's not the case.
No.
They can be done, all levels can be, whether it's all natural or all organic or conventional. Grass-fed. You know, it's a big industry. There's not a right or wrong. For our family, it's what's profitable, and it's what's going to keep us sustainable, and it's what's going to allow our children to come back to the farm and allow our grandchildren, if they choose to make a living here. We don't choose the things that keep us in business, but that we're also going to produce a very safe and wholesome product. We're going to try to take care of the land in the meantime and our resources, God-given resources that we've been given to be stewards of. We don't try to leave it better than we found it. And we're going to try to be good to people. We're going to be trying to our employees, folks in our community, people that buy our product. Every component is very important.
Did you, when starting your beef operation, did you always have, I'm going off of my limited experience in the beef industry, did you always have that end product of the meat in your mind? Or was it always like, trying to make bulls and sell bulls? Because for me, when I kind of got, I've really changed my mind in, looking at beef as more of the end product for the plate of the consumer, and gotten away from, trying to make bulls or females and like that. I'm very more thought process of what's that end product going to be. Have you always had that end product in place, or was there, was your focus on bulls and females, which is fine, but at the end of the day, those bulls and females still turn to that end product?
Right. I think I always did have the end product in mind.
Okay.
I can remember looking at those breed journals back in the late 70s, all through the 80s, and seeing all the blue ribbons and the big banners and the fancy belt buckles. A lot of the belt buckles, you could see the people that were standing behind the cattle in the picture, you could see their belt buckles under the belly of the bull or the heifer or the steer. And I often wondered, as I looked at those breeder journals, there was very little talk about the product. It was all about the cattle. And really wasn't much in the way of being better producers. It was maybe just how to make one look better or show better. And I often wondered, I wonder how many of these folks that own these big cattle farms really understand how important it is that when that consumer buys our product, that it's a very tasty and wholesome and a satisfying eating experience. And if it isn't, they're going to go buy something else, some other choice of protein that's probably a lot less inexpensive. And during the 80s, we saw that. We saw people leaving red meat it's just as hard as they could and going to lean pork or lean poultry, or thinking that they needed the very leanest of beef. But we've seen a change in that in recent years. We've seen the consumer come back to demanding quality. They want a good eating experience. They want tenderness and they want juiciness, and they still want it to be safe and wholesome and healthy. But we've seen a turn in that. But yeah, I think we all take our eye off the end product way more than we should. And we see what's here before us: cows grazing and calves being born and bulls breeding cows. But if we can keep that end product in mind and being sure that we're meeting the needs of the consumer, I think our chances of being a long-term player in the protein business will be very good.
Now I'm kind of a little bit all over the board here. You got a retail store. Do you sell beef there then too?
We do have a small kind of farm-to-market retail store where we primarily sell our nuts, the pecans, where we make candies and pies and gift tins, but we also sell our farm-raised beef there in a retail store on a storefront. And that's been a real learning experience for our family, and really something we take great pride in.
When did the retail store open, or how long you been doing
We
that?
just did that 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Although we have been selling beef out of deep freezers for years now.
Yep.
Sides, quarters, halves, even by the piece. But we just really went to a very small retail front here in the last 3 years. And as we've had children, mature and get married and come back to the farm. We're always looking for ways to diversify and give everybody an opportunity to do something that's that they're way more talented at than maybe Lydia and I are.
You kind of hit what I was going with this. So is this the retail store? What other things did you put into, like, did you expect your kids to come back to the farm? What did you put, like, what have you put in place in regards to them potentially coming back, or was there no, just kind of they came back and it's like, all right, let's figure this out, what do we do next? Or was it always kind of progressing towards your kids coming back?
Well, I think any family business, particular a family farm, the parents always have to be thinking, are the kids don't want to do this? And if we're really true with ourselves, or in our instance, it was something that we probably yearned for. But I hope we were always careful never to pressure our kids into feeling obligated. We wanted our kids to go off and do whatever that would make them the most fulfilled and happy in life. And we never even thought that all three of our children would come back to the farm. We thought maybe one out of three or maybe two out of three, but we sure didn't know 3 out of the 3 would come back. As we built our farm, and us being a first generation farm, it was kind of neat. Our kids actually got to be part of building this farm, and they were of the age that they remember digging the first fence post and building the barn, and so they got to experience all those things with us and got to see the toils and the challenges and the opportunities. And there was really nobody over the older generation went standing over our heads saying, you got to do this and you got to do that. We had a little bit of saved money and fooled the USDA into loaning us a little money at low interest that a commercial bank would have never touched us. And so we got to do it together. And Lydia and I said early on that it would be a travesty if we worked this hard to establish a family farm, and the time came if one or all the kids wanted to come back, that we would have to turn one or all of them away because it couldn't sustain them. And we've seen that in agriculture all across the country. In most cases, it couldn't be helped. And I thought that was often be a sad day if you had a child come back from school with something to offer, and you have to tell them, hey, there's not room. And fortunately, we were able to bring them back. But it was not a birthright, it was a work right. And they had to bring something back with them. They just wasn't going to come back being labor. They just wasn't going to come back and have a position. They had to bring something back of value. We always told them that there's a pie here, and everybody in the family, and as well as the current loyal employees, we all continue to need a piece of pie. So if you plan to come back, you had to figure out how to make the pie bigger and how to bring value. And we made a rule with our children that they had to leave here. If they wanted to come back, they had to leave here and stay gone 4 years. Now, college could be part of that 4 years. It could have been military. It could have been work. We encouraged them to go on and get further education. So we allowed college to be part of that 4 years, but we insisted on the summers that they go somewhere else to work. And our 3 children went all over the country with different internships, and we're very grateful. Looking back, it was mainly families that they went and worked for, and most families that were in the cattle business. Mm-hmm. And these families took our children in, and they showed them the ups and downs of their family and how maybe they had transitioned or succession plans they had had from one generation to the other, and how they did time off and how they did vacation or weekends off and that kind of thing. So it was very helpful that we sent our children out, and then they brought back all these good ideas back from other families. And they also quickly learned that although they thought we were pretty hard drivers, that maybe we weren't so mean and tough as, as they once thought we were.
That's probably most kids, isn't it?
Yeah, so I do encourage farm kids to go off and see the other side of the world. It's a good time to do it when you're young.
So do you get more vacation time now?
Yes. It's not necessarily vacation time. It could be, if we chose. To us, it could be an industry event, or it could be a vacation that now that there's family back, we can rotate duties. And that's something else. As we started our farm, we could have chose to just be a fairly small operation where Lydia and I did all the work ourselves and not had any outside help. But we chose to maybe go a little level beyond that because we wanted to participate in our kids' 4-H activities, or wanted to be able to go to the National Junior Show for a week if we needed to, or wanted to be able to go see our kids play baseball or help coach those ball teams or those livestock judging teams. And if you're the only 2 workers on the place, lots of families don't get to enjoy that because they just can't get away. So we made a conscious effort to have some extra help where we could get away. And looking back, that was a very good decision.
Let's see. So what is it like being named Southeast Farmer of the Year?
Oh, that was very humbling.
Yeah.
Especially after getting to meet the other 10 Southeastern farmers and farm families from across the Southeast. Any one of them could have been chosen to be the Southeastern Farmer of the Year. They just happened to choose our family.
Yeah.
And it's very humbling. It's very appreciative to, anytime when, you're out here on the farm and you think no one noticed, and anytime you can be noticed or patted on the back, I think we all appreciate that. But we just got to get back up and know that you got to make things better the next day.
Because who was that through? That was
through the Sunbelt Ag Expo, a long time in farm show down in Moultrie, Georgia. That's a big thing here in the Southeast.
Yeah. I read some articles about it, and you were the 3rd South Carolinian and the first Clemson alum. There we go. So I suppose Clemson had a couple write-ups I saw, so they were pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So did you get some sweet tickets out of the deal for the Clemson football games, or
haven't seen them yet, but maybe they're forthcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dabo hasn't been out here to say
no,
thanks.
haven't heard from Dabo, but we'd welcome him with open arms if he decides to come.
Yeah.
And we work very closely with Clemson and always have. We've always wanted our farm to be like an extended campus for them. We've hosted intern after intern and student group after student group, and have done some research projects, and are big supporters of the land grant institutions, whether it's Clemson or Georgia, or NC State or Texas A&M.
So you how many? So you have interns every summer?
Yes.
How many?
Oh, it varies. This summer we've got 3 interns and 1 high school student. So there's 4 of them here.
So what do they all do the same thing, or you kind of have certain ones doing certain things, or how do you?
When you have student help and summer help, and it could be just family members back for the summer, or in this case more of a formal intern, it really it makes you think more, it makes you work a little harder, it makes you be a little sharper. You want it to be a wonderful experience for them. You want them to learn all they possibly can learn. In the meantime, if you don't watch out, you'll learn a whole lot too, just being the teacher and sometimes just stepping back and listening to them. But it's been very rewarding. We feel very blessed to get to have a farm. There wasn't a farm to start with, and now we have a farm. And looking back, there's been so many farmers in my lifetime, as I was that young person that gave me opportunities as a 6th grader on up. All through, I never had a farm that wasn't a job, that wasn't working on a farm ever. I've never had a non-farm job. So there's been a lot of those farmers that have taken chances on me and have allowed me to make big mistakes and to be exposed to what they did. So now that we have been blessed with a farm, I feel very urged to give that same opportunity to others. And we want to share our farm with anybody that's interested. Our family kids especially give me a hard time. They'll say I'll hire anybody, and if it's a young person that wants to work, I will. We'll find something for them to do. And it might not be the most glamorous job, and we don't care if they've never stepped foot on a farm. As long as they have a desire to work and have a desire to learn, we'll find something for them to do.
So how long have you been doing this internship stuff?
We have done it since we left Clemson. We've
Really?
done it for the last 30 years.
Wow.
Even at Congaree Farms, our very first summer there, then it was the only help we could afford. And we do look for them to be good help. They need to contribute, and they do contribute.
Are you still in touch with a lot of those interns?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what they've gone over a 30-year span. We've got rock star college professors across the country that interned with us. We have veterinarians. We have EMS workers. We have just a whole array of what they've gone and done. It's really rewarding to see what these young people have gone off and done.
Have you hired anybody that's not egg at all? Like somebody just in the internship program? Is it always a college student that's egg based, or have you gotten somebody that's just wanted to try something different?
We have usually the ones that come through the internship are ag based, but that is not a prerequisite for us. We want them to be interested in ag and want to learn what we do. But some of our best employees over time have had zero ag experience, but they came here with a strong work ethic and a desire to learn, and they've sometimes made the very best cow people.
Well, I think we're kind of wrapping up here. Just a few last things. Kind of what is your outlook on the beef industry? Is it a positive one? And what advice do you have for young aspiring farm ranchers, beef producers? What kind words do you have for them?
I see tremendous opportunity in the beef industry in days to come. I would be remiss if I didn't say there would be challenges as well. But what industry doesn't present us with challenges along the way? The opportunities are there's a growing world out there. There's a world that's bigger than our community, and there's a world bigger than our state and bigger even our country. There's people all across the globe that will want our product. And as their standards of living gets better, they'll eat a little higher on the food chain, and they'll be able to add some protein. And we want it to be beef. So I think our opportunities are many in expanding the global demand of our product. And our opportunities are many in making our product better. And we have made our product better in the last 20 years. Our product is better today than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And hopefully we can maintain domestic demand and increase that demand. So I think the opportunities are many in our industry. With technology and the science, things are changing so quickly. We've seen that with genomics and DNA and just in the last 5 years, and just to think of what the next 10 years hold when we can use genomics to tell us which ones don't stay healthy better than others, and which ones are going to do better on grass or that infected fescue than others, or maybe even we discovered that some cattle have more healthful qualities in their meat than others. The healthfulness of beef, maybe there's a difference there. So I think for young people, I think that the opportunities are many, that not just on the production segment, but on the research and developing these new technologies. And we've seen young people flock to our industry, and that's encouraging, seeing these young researchers that are interested in genetics and nutrition and reproduction. So I think the opportunities are many. I still feel fairly young myself, but I would tell those that are younger than I, or maybe a little less experienced than I, not that we have a lot of experience, but is that, it's pretty still old school. It's still just doing the right thing. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the richest. You just got to be willing to work hard, be honest, and treat others the way you like to be treated. And if you can just do those things and be persistent at it and be patient and surround yourselves with the right kind of people, success is attainable by most any of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good final words. I guess one last question I should ask earlier. So when I called you the first time a couple weeks ago, what was your first initial thought of some Minnesota boy coming down in a bus to interview you?
Well, I'll be very honest. I thought that it was a bit odd. It was a bit intriguing. There again, I thought back to my early days of being a startup business, and folks gave me a chance with crazier ideas than that. Mm-hmm. And I like giving folks chances. You did mention a mutual friend we have, and we like due diligence. Mm-hmm. So I certainly checked with that mutual friend and said, hey, is this guy for real? Is this going to be a waste of time? And she quickly told me, no, he's authentic, he's for real, and he's got his heart in the right place, and I'd sure appreciate if you'd talk to him. So I'm glad you came today and brought your family, and I wish you the very best in your venture.
Well, thank you very much. You've been a great host. It's been a great. I love going out looking at cows. I wish I could have been here at 8 this morning and spend all day with you. And maybe again in the future we will.
Love to have you back anytime.
But it was great, and I appreciate it. And we'll do this again, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you much. Have a good one.
Thank you.